And one important lesson we should learn from this text is simply, don't mess with God. Don't mess with God. God's got power, more power than any idol that could possibly ever be out there. God is the one who created us. We're the one who created idols. Certainly, he's more impressive and powerful than the idols. You see, when God's presence through his prophet walks into a town, everything changes. People can ignore him. They can rebel from him. They can hate him. They can turn and worship something else. But there will come a day when judgment will fall. He's gracious to give us a long time, but sooner or later, judgment is coming. It's an important lesson. Don't mess with God. Now, sometimes people might confuse the lesson of this passage a little bit, especially those who are in Christian leadership, and say, the lesson is, don't mess with the anointed one of God. Steve Walters is a pastor in our church. Many of you guys know Steve. And he tells me the story of a church that he used to be on staff in, where the pastor of the church thought that that was the key lesson of Elisha and Saul and others. And every time that he would hit a confrontation, people would come and confront him in the hallways about something he was doing wrong. He would say, touch not the Lord's anointed. Board meetings, big confrontation comes out. Everyone disagrees with him. He says, touch not the Lord's anointed. I was thinking about putting that as a slogan on my office door, for everybody to come. Like at board meetings, we start off with that. No, I'm not thinking about that at all. The idea is that God's judgment falls. Don't mess with God. Don't mess with God. Now, I want to ask you guys a question at the end of these two stories. We got the bull story, we got the bear story. As you look at these two stories, which one do you just like more? You say, this one fills my heart with joy more. Say either bull or bears. All our different venues. Say it out loud. Bull or bears? 1, 2, 3. Bull. Yeah, most people love bull. They love the bull story because there's healing, there's blessing here. You got blessings here, you've got curses there. And I think that as God's people, we oftentimes make the mistake of just telling one kind of story from the Bible, the blessing story. And oftentimes we miss the power story, the judgment story, looking at God's severity and God's wrath. Because God is not some kind of a domesticated kitty cat. He's a roaring lion. He is a strong bear. He will not be tamed by our storytelling bias. And God's presence changes everything, but he doesn't always make things nice. The curse of the bears is real and disturbing, and it's one of the reasons why we fear the Lord. I want to point out one other thing from this passage as well, and that is that I believe that God's judgment in this passage is actually an act of mercy. Because whether you're talking about the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel or the youths of Bethel who came out in gang violence against Elisha, there are large groups of people who make it their agenda to drag others away from God. They commit their lives to it and to taunting and degrading his name. When God shows himself powerful by certain kinds of blessings like the bowl or curses like the bears, it points entire communities, generations, and in this case, people here today, separated by millennia, points us back to God, to the fact that he has power. You better believe that the people of Bethel got the message that Yahweh God is far more powerful than the golden calf, and that they should turn to him, and if they're smart, they will turn to him. You see, God sometimes takes desperate measures to get people's attention in order to be able to reach them. So in all sincerity, friends, don't mess with God. He's good, but he's powerful. And he promises that judgment is coming. There are a lot worse things in this world than death, or than sickness, or than being mauled by a bear. I mean, there's an eternity of isolation and suffering and separation from God and darkness that comes from rejecting God for your entire life. Sometimes God allows us to go through painful episodes in the midst of our life in order to get our attention so that we avoid the worst possible destiny that could be inflicted on human beings.